So as I said, there's basically three types of questions here. The first type are where you have products of sine and cosine, or cosine and cosine. So you have four different options here. You have sine times a cosine times a sine times a cosine, and a sine times a sine. So you have four different possibilities. And in fact, the first two are the same, really. They're just the other way around. So what happens then is you also have sine functions like this, where you basically have an even power. So you can have sine squared, say 4x dx, and that's where you have an even power. And there's a process for doing those. There's a technique for doing those questions, and then there's a different technique if the power is odd. So if you have sine cubed 3x or sine to the power of 5 dx, there's a different process for those. But obviously, you're always going to get one of each, because I have to ask, say, an even one here, and I might put an odd one here, or the other way around here. Everyone okay with that? So basically, let's go through them. So we start in the first set. So there's a couple of things. These identities that you get in the mathematical tables, you have to remember this, that the cosine of a negative number is the cosine of the positive value. So if you have a negative angle, cosine of minus 60, that is equal to the cosine of plus 60. And this actually used to come in, it's the bit I took out from surveying this year, tachymetry. This used to come in play when we were looking at tachymetry. And basically what you're saying here is, even if you're measuring with a tape, say you have in surveying, say you measure from 2 points and one is down below the other one. So say that's minus 4 degrees or something like that. When you're looking for your horizontal distance, L is equal to L sloped times the cosine of minus 4 degrees, like that, okay? So to remember, we were looking at that's a slope distance, so you could be up on King's Inn, and you might measure with a tape from S1 down to S2, so there's quite a bit of a slope there. So if you had to work out your horizontal distance from that, you'd measure the slope. You can measure it by getting the difference in reduced levels or using what's called a clinometer. But if you measure the slope, you can then say the actual horizontal length or plan length as you look down is equal to the slope length multiplied by the cosine. And if you're pointing down, the angle is minus 4 degrees. If the slope is going upwards, it's plus 4 degrees. But either way, your distance is always going to be positive. Your plan distance is always going to be positive. Okay, so that's an important rule to know, that the cosine of a negative angle is equal to cosine of the equivalent positive angle. But the cosine of a negative angle, the sine of a negative angle, is minus sine of the positive angle. Okay, so you can bring the minus outside. Excuse me. A couple of rules here. The integral of sine x is minus cosine x. The integral of cosine x is sine x. These are the four identities, and we'll use these for the first set of equations. So here you have a product of sine 4x, cosine 2x. So come up to our rules, and if we look here, which of the four rules is it? So I'm going to do a quick custom poll here. And it may seem obvious here, but you'd actually be surprised. 2, 3, 4. So which of those rules do we take? Starting with 1 at the top. 2, 3, and 4. Which of those rules apply? A product of sine of an angle times the cosine of an angle. Okay, which of them? A lot of you are getting it right, obviously. Now the order does matter. So the order in which you take them matters. So they're not the same. I said earlier that if you have the sine function first and the cosine function second, it's not the same as the other way around here. So this is rule number 1, yeah? The sine is first, the cosine is second. So what we then say is the first thing you do when you have a function like this is you want it in this format. And this says 2 times sine A sine B. So if I have this one, I basically introduce a half times 2. So when you write it like this, the sine of 4x cosine x dx. To use this rule, we have to introduce a half outside and put a 2 inside, because we need to get it in this format with a 2 in front of it. Cosine 2x dx. So that is equal to a half times the integral of sine and a plus b. So that's 4x plus 2x. That's a, that's b, plus the sine of 4x minus 2x. That's a minus b. So that's how you get the half times the integral of sine of 6x plus the sine of 2x. Does everyone understand what I've done there? I basically applied that rule. We have a product, and basically using these identities we can split that product into two different terms, into an addition basically. And once you have it in this format, you're then able to integrate it. So the integral of sine of 6x, well the integral of sine x is minus cosine x up here. So the integral of sine x is minus cosine 6x, and then you divide by the coefficient of x. And here the integral of sine 2x, the integral of sine x is minus cosine x, so the integral of sine 2x is minus cosine 2x divided by the integral of, by the coefficient of x. So I'm just going to make one up here exactly like that, just different numbers. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to let you have a go at it. So I'll just make up some figures here off the top of my head. So what if we make up this one? Sine of 8x cosine of 4x dx. So I'll pause the video. If I do this one here, it's equal to a half times twice the sine of 8x times the cosine of 4x dx, which is equal to a half times the sine of a plus b, so it's ax plus 4x, plus the integral of sine, and it's 8x minus 4x, and that's all dx. And that is equal to a half times the integral of sine of 12x plus the sine of 4x dx. And that is equal to a half times, and it's minus the cosine of 12x over the coefficient of x minus the cosine of 4x over the coefficient of x plus our constant of integration. And that is equal to minus cosine of 12x over 24. So I'm actually wrong. Cosine 4x over 8, because I forgot the half. So forgive me, my fault. I actually forgot the half. So no wonder you didn't go for the right answer there. So I myself forgot that should be, I put this, the first one is the correct option, but in fact I forgot the half. So it's minus cosine 12x over 24 plus cosine 4x over 8 plus the c. So sorry, on that custom poll I forgot the half. You have this. You need to apply the rule where you have a 2 in front of it. Yeah? So what I do is I multiply by a half times 2. So that's, I introduce the half and I introduce the 2. Yeah? I'm looking for the 2 because now by putting the 2 in front of here I have it in this format. But to put the 2 there I have to pre-multiply by the half. So it means you're trying to use this rule, so you need 2 times sine 4x times cosine 2x. You need to have a 2 in front of it, so to get the 2 in front of it, you basically introduce the half. So a half times 2 is equal to 1. The other way you could do it is just say that sine a cosine b is equal to a half times the sine of a plus b plus the sine of a minus b. You could write the rule that way if you find it easier to kind of cop onto. Okay, so we'll go on to the next rule here. So this example here is the cosine of 5x times the sine of 3x. So once again, custom poll, which rule do we use? Which of the 4 identities as they're called? do we use from the table up on top? You have the 4 identities here. So which of the 4 identities do you use here? You use the second one. So you can see if you use the second one, it's the sine of a plus b 2 times the cosine of a times the sine of b is the sine of a plus b minus the sine of a minus b. Okay, and that gives us, in this case, we have, first of all, once again, we introduce the half and the 2. So we have now the 2 in front of it, so we're ready to use this rule. And that gives us that is equal to half times the integral of the sine of a plus b. So it's 5x plus 3x. That's my a, that's my b. Plus minus the sine of a minus b. So it's 5x minus 3x. So that's how you're getting the 8x and the 2x. And you integrate this, so once again it's minus cosine of 8x over 8, but it's minus here, and then you have to open up a bracket here because you know the integral of sine x is minus cosine x. So it's safer to open up a bracket when you're getting a negative value here in the integral. And then you have a minus times a minus here, so it stops you making a mistake basically. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this again out here. And let you have a go at this one. So I made that one up. Cosine 7x divided and multiplied by sine 2x. So it's equal to a half times the 2 cosine 7x sine 2x dx. And that is equal to half times the integral of sine, and it's a plus b, so it's 7 plus 2 giving me 9x, minus the sine, and it's a minus b, so it's 7x minus 2x giving me 5x dx. So it's 7 plus 2 here, 7 plus 2 here, and a 7 minus 2 here. So that gives me a half times the integral of sine x is minus cosine x, so it's minus sine cosine 9x.
Hey, Garth.
Yeah.
Would you just be able to just resume recording, please?
Oh yeah. I'm recording on the other one. I'm recording on the video down here. So it's minus cosine 9x divided by 9. Minus, and it's here, it's minus times, open up a bracket, minus cosine 5x divided by 5. And I close off those square brackets at the end. So I just open up a square bracket for this, plus a constant of integration. And that is equal to minus the cosine of 9x over 18 plus the cosine of 5x over 10 plus a constant of integration. So the answer there should be the third one. Okay. Now I'm going to do another one of these because they get a bit tricky. So this time we're going to end up with a negative answer. So cosine of 2x sine of 6x dx. Same question, same one. Cosine first, sine second, but this time the a minus b is going to be negative. So how do you handle that? So if we look at this one, cosine 2x sine 6x, that is equal to a half times 2 cosine 2x sine of 6x dx, which is equal to a half times, and it's the sine of a plus b, so that's ax, 2 plus 6, minus the sine of, what did I say it was? It was 2 minus 6, so it's minus 4x dx. Now I'm not sure if I got it right. We'll see in a minute if the answer is correct on the 4 answers I gave you. That is equal to half times the integral of sine of 8x. Now remember what I said, the sine of a negative number is minus the sine, so this becomes minus the sine, and that gives me a half times the integral of sine of 8x plus the sine of 4x dx. So that gives me half times, it's cosine 8x, sorry, it's minus cosine 8x over 8 minus sine cosine 4x over 4 dx. And did I give that as an option? Sorry, and obviously I have to multiply by 2 then. 8x over 16 minus cosine 4x over 8 plus c. So just make sure I did that right. Yes, I've applied the correct rule, but because we have a negative angle here, sine of minus 4x becomes minus sine 4x. Then we have a minus times a minus, giving us a plus here. And then I integrate both of them. So I'm just seeing, did I give that option? Maybe I didn't in the custom poll. Minus, yeah, I did. And it's option number 2. Yeah. Okay. So that's tricky because you're getting this negative angle. So you really need to do these properly. You need to notice this rule up here. So when you get a negative angle, if it's the cosine of a negative cosine angle, it's the same as the positive cosine of the positive angle. If, however, it's the sine of a negative angle, it's minus times the sine of the positive angle. And you need to know that rule to do it. Okay, so the next one we do then is this one. Cosine of 6x, so we do obviously rule number 3. I have them in order here. Cosine A, cosine B is the cosine of A plus B plus the cosine of A minus B. So this is the rule that we're using. So it's the 2 times the cosine of A times the cosine of B is equal to cosine of A plus B plus the cosine of A minus B. Okay, that's the rule we're using because we have the cosine of A, cosine of B. So A is 6, B is 4. A is 6x, B is 4x. So once again, I write it with the half and the 2 here, so we have it in this format. And then it's basically the cosine of A plus B, so 6 plus 4. And this one is 6 minus 4. And the integral of cosine x up here, integral of cosine x dx is plus sine x dx, plus sine x plus constant of integration. So using that rule, the integral of cosine 10x is the sine of 10x divided by the coefficient of x, and the integral of cosine 2x is sine 2x divided by the coefficient of x, which is 2. And then we just bring across and we're dividing by 2 times 10 for 20, and 2 times 2 is 4. So if I come and I just make up another one, and have a go with this one. Cosine, go for 8x, cosine 2x dx. Give that one a go. This is equal to a half times the integral of 2 cosine 8x cosine 2x dx, which is equal to a half times the integral, and it's cosine A plus B, so it's 8 plus 2 is 10x, plus cosine A minus B, so it's 8 minus 2 giving me 6x dx, And the integral of cosine, if I integrate those, the integral of cosine x is sine x. So it's, I open up a square bracket, the sine of 10x divided by the coefficient of x, which is 10, plus the integral of cosine 6x is the sine of 6x divided by 6 plus the constant of integration. And that dividing in your half, gives you 2 times 10 is 20, plus the sine of 6x over 12 plus the constant of integration. Yeah. So the next one will be a bit trickier because the first angle is going to be less than the second angle. So I'll reverse the 2 angles we had before. Dx is equal to what? So I'll pause that and let you have a go with that. I'll resume the coordinate up here. So it's equal to half times 2 cosine 2x cosine 8x dx, which is equal to half times the integral of cosine a plus b, which is 10x again, plus the cosine of a minus b, which is 2 minus 8, which is minus 6x dx. But then that is equal to half times the integral of cosine 10x plus the cosine of 6x dx. So it's actually the same as this one over here, which is the other way around. So what this shows you is that the cosine of, it doesn't work for all of them, but for the cosine, if it's product of cosine, that is the integral of cosine 8x cosine 2x dx. And that gives the same answer we had before, which is sine of 10x over 20 plus the sine of 6x over 12. Just taking what I had over here, basically.
What happens
that's just the rule here. You're talking about here. And all I've done here is I've applied this rule here, up here, where it says that the cosine, it's the rule I had at the top here, the cosine of a negative angle is the cosine of the same positive angle. Yeah? So that means if we're, it kind of, as I was saying at the start, it kind of ties in with surveying. So say you had S1 here and S2 is down there, and you measure down like that. If this point was higher by the same angle, so say that was 2 degrees up or 2 degrees down, the plan difference, which is in blue, and these are slope distances, sloped there, L sloped multiplied by the cosine of 2 degrees, and it's also equal to L slope 2 by the cosine of minus 2 degrees. It's the same, basically. You're saying if these lengths here, this one here is the same length as that, and the angle is the same, that the plan length is the same. So the cosine of a negative angle is equal to the cosine of a positive angle. So the cosine of minus 10 degrees is equal to cosine of plus 10 degrees. Okay. So,
minus 1 go to the cos.
sorry?
Would the minus 1 go in front of the cos, and then that would change to minus sine 6x?
No, because what I'm saying is this is the rule. The rule is if you have cosine of a negative angle, that's the same as the cosine of the positive angle. So the minus doesn't come out. If it was the sine function, then the minus comes out. But if it's a positive function, if it's a cosine function, the minus just disappears. Okay? So it's a basic rule. If you're dealing with a sine function, the minus has to come out. If you're dealing with a cosine function, the minus disappears. Okay, you just think of it that way. So what you're saying, Timotopy, would be correct if it had been a sine function, but not for a cosine function. So if we look at this then, look at this last one. This last one uses the fourth rule, and it's a product of a sine function and a cosine function. So it's the fourth rule up here, which is sine A, sine B. So that's a tricky rule, but it's basically sine A, 2 times the sine of A times the sine of B is equal to is it minus cosine? No, it's cosine A minus B minus cosine of A plus B. So it's kind of a tricky rule to remember. But if we look at this example here, this is equal to the cosine, half times the integral of the cosine of A minus B, so it's 5x minus x, minus the cosine of A plus B, so it's 5x plus x dx. So that's how you end up with the cosine of 4x, so it's A minus B, that's your A, that's your B, and this one is A plus B. And then the integral of cosine 4x is sine 4x over 4, and the integral of cosine 6x is sine 6x over 6. So that's a handy enough one. The rule's a bit tricky. The rule is up there. But if I just make one up here, so I'll make this one up, sine of 8x, I'll just use the same one I've done before, sine 2x like that. So I'll put is equal to half times 2 times the sine of 8x sine of 2x dx, and that gives me a half times the the integral of the cosine of A plus B, so that's 10x, isn't it? A minus B, I'm using this rule up here, so it's actually 6x minus the cosine, I'm following this rule up here, so it's A minus B minus the cosine of A plus B, so that's 10x and that's all times dx. So it's a tricky enough rule to use, but you're using that rule up there, and that is equal to half times the integral of cosine 6x is the sine of 6x over 6 minus, and then the integral of cosine 10x is the sine of 10x over 10 plus a constant of integration, and that gives us 6x over 12 minus sine 10x over 20 plus the constant of integration. So I think the first one is correct. Tell me if you got that. Okay, and then I'm going to make one more, because I'll try and make this one a bit trickier with I'll leave that up there because that's the rule we're using. So I'll swap this around. It's sine x sine 8x dx like that. So I'll pause the video and let you have a go at that one. It's equal to a half times the integral of 2 sine 2x sine 8x dx. That is equal to half times the integral of cosine A minus B is minus 6x. 2 minus 8 is minus 6. Minus the cosine of A plus B is 10x. Brackets around that, so we have dx, and that of course gives me half times the integral of the cosine of minus 6x is the cosine of plus 6x minus the cosine of 10x dx. The dx applies to each one, so I do it by putting brackets around them. The dx applies to each of them, and that gives me half times, open up a square bracket, cosine 6x is sine 6x divided by 6 minus, and this one is the sine of 10x divided by 10 plus c, and that gives me sine of 6x over 12 minus the sine of 10x over 20 plus the constant of integration. So I'll just ask quickly, how many got that? Good for you. But it's the same rule basically. If you see, the main thing here is to realize if you see cosine minus 6x, the minus sign just disappears. That's the easiest way to think about it. So the cosine minus 6x becomes cosine plus 6x. If, however, it was sine of minus 6x, that would become minus the sine of 6x. Okay, it's just, we finished that section. Like I say, they can come up in the applications question. Next we're going to do even powers of sine and cosine. Sorry, I never recorded that last one, but I'll just record it myself on the second video here. I'll just go through it. You can take a break now, yeah? So I'm gonna, yeah, if you just want to take a break now, yeah, that's fine. So it is 5 to 5. Do you want to come back at 5 past? Everyone okay with this? Come back at 5 past 10, yeah? I'm going to start the next section then. Okay, I'm just going to talk back over this and record it, do it for the second video. Siobhan, yeah?
I just have a quick question. Would you not just continue the recording just so you don't forget? Because just as a group, we were just going over the videos and all, and we were just wondering if you recorded the lectures, it would save you an awful lot of time having to record over the stuff and the lectures that we've done.
Fair enough, but there's kind of big blanks or whatever, you know, in the video.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll let it play. It's up to itself, whatever, I don't mind. There's going to be big blanks in it. Anyway, I'm recording these other videos anyway, because there's a single screen on them.
Oh.
Okay, so they're working a bit better anyway. Okay, I'm going to just do this for this other video. Oh no, it has